I'm fine. We're already day 20, right?
Yes, day 20.
I checked that today. So it's moving so fast. I thought we were still in 15, 16. I hardly check actually.
I check daily.
But sometimes I see flyers around and I see people posting about it. But um, you know, I know we are in the last 10 days. That's the time I know we are getting close
Indeed.
to the end of Ramadan and Eid prayers. At the time, most people start preparing for them pre-day close. I could imagine how overwhelmed tailors will be. But it has become a little bit easier now. I see a lot of people are selling
ready-made clothes.
Yes, already sewn. So you just go and buy and you ensure that it fits you so you can wear. So I'm sure those tailors who disappoint in our communities, perhaps some of them are out of business or they don't have to fight with their customers again.
That used to be the case many a time back then, and you get to hear people say, "Oh, this morning I'm going to go pray, tell a man not giving me clothes." But it has changed actually.
Yeah, it has. I can recall when we were growing up, you have to go to the tailor to take your measurements. You have to be there days before pre-day. You'll be there waiting for your own to be ready with excitement. Everyone wants theirs. And if you are disappointed, sometimes you don't even have to go for prayers because you don't have, for us Muslims, it's a time to celebrate as well. It's a time to put on your best and as well, feel good and celebrate with the Muslim community as well with your family.
Let me tell you a short story. A few years back, a woman went to the tailor, handed over the dress, of course, the unsewn, and when she went back, I think it was 3 days to Eid, the tailor said, "In a prayer you want to close for," and the woman was shocked. So these are the things that make it. That there's this atmosphere you get to enjoy as Eid approaches, and of course we get to go around to visit our cousins. For those of us who get to receive some pocket money back then, those are the things.
I know, but you still have those tailors in the communities who I'm sure will be overwhelmed with. You still have people who want their own styles, people who want their own material and all of that. So they still go to their local tailors. So I'm sure some people won't be disappointed.
Yes, hopefully.
Hopefully they will have to celebrate. And it's again, we want to say the way we practice religion in Sierra Leone is something worth celebrating. I have Muslim friends who observe the holy month of Ramadan with us. They expect what we do as much as we expect them. And that is what we've been celebrating. And that is what we think as a nation we should showcase, as a people, as one of the things that brings us together, not the few things that divide us, especially with politics and all of that. So religious tolerance is our strength. It's the thing I've read a lot of articles. I've seen people visiting Sierra Leone to learn how we are upholding this in other parts of the world, in Africa, in the sub-region. Christians and Muslims don't live together. They don't intermarry. Here we have a lot of that. You'll have families where the dad is a Muslim, the mom is a Christian. The kids will prefer where they want to go. So these are things we should celebrate.
And the Christians also are joining Muslims to give charity. And that's one thing we should applaud them for. You go across the states of Malama Thomas State, Eastern Police, Cotton Tea, they get to share. food in the evening, and that's
Yeah.
beautiful. We want to appreciate them for what they're doing
Yes.
to be recognized.
Yes, we recognize that. But good morning to all our viewers and listeners from across the country and across the world. This is how I welcome you to your number one breakfast show, Wake Up Salone, on AYV Television on Channel 33. We're on DSTV on Channel 399. We are on Radio on FM 11.7. Today is Tuesday, the 11th day in the month of April 2023, and we're counting down with barely 75 days to the June 24th multi-tier elections. My name is Amadullah Mwanaba. Good morning and welcome.
And I am Zulaya Tuhamid. You can be part of this 2 hours conversation through our AYV Facebook page and share your thoughts and comments. Stay with us as we join David Remy Wilson for our news summary. But first, let's join our sponsors for a word.
Every day, the world wakes up to you. Millions of people are getting ready for you for shopping, travel expenses, utility bills, trade, and commerce. If we all have wishes, then what is your financial transaction wish?
I'd like to have a choice.
I'd like convenience.
I'd like to pay for goods and services on the go.
I'd like to pay utility bills on the go. Out of credit and data, buy some mobile top up, still on my phone. Oops, light out. I'll buy some extra, still on my phone.
I'd like to make payment from my account to another account through my mobile phone.
As a CEO of a company, I would like my staff to receive their salaries through bulk e-payment without the risk of transporting cash.
Rokel Commercial Bank SimCorp does it all.
Rokel Commercial Bank SimCorp. Think of it as
Money when you're close to home and when you're away from home for unexpected expenses, and money for those times when cash fails.
If you can dream it, you can become it. If you can imagine it, you can achieve it.
Rokel Commercial Bank SimCorp is all you need.
AYV International, a truly global media outlet. Our media platforms can be found across the world, including Africa, America, Asia, Europe, Caribbean, the Pacific, and more. Our media services include broadcasting, media production of documentaries, movies, and a wide range of audiovisual services, advertising and public relations, sporting and events coverage, photography, and a reliable media equipment rental unit, as well as media training. Contact us at our International AYV Media Centre, 18 Soho Square, London, United Kingdom, W1D 3QH. Telephone us on 074 967 45633. Or you can send us an email to ayv.international@ayvnews.com or ayv.international@gmail.com. You can also find us on our social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
All right, well, in our top stories this morning, Sierra Leone is among the many countries which has a huge inequality gap regarding wages and salaries. However, in a bid to address this disparity, Parliament has enacted the Wages and Compensation Commission Act 2023. During the passage, Honorable Abdul Karim Kamara pointed that the country's wage is now super bloated as compared to 2017, while the leader of government business, Honorable Matthew Yuma, said the bill will fix the salary structure and address the disparity in wages.
And at the time we were talking of that, the wage bill was at 1.9 trillion. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, for the record, the Minister of Finance is here. We're having a wage bill now that is about 4.8 trillion. I am referencing this because I want to make it clear that what we have before us is a bill that will seek to address issues that will have been addressed before we have a super bloated wage bill we have now. Because if it was 1.9 and it was referred to as a bloated wage bill, if we will have passed this this bill long before now into our act, we would have addressed the inequalities and the unprecedented strikes that occurred in Sierra Leone within the last 4 years. Saying in 2017, you refer to the wage bill as bloated. In 2020, you had the opportunity as members of parliament to deal with this bill to address the issue of a bloated wage bill. And we took 3 years depriving this nation in addressing addressing the problem we saw in 2017. So I am saying, under your leadership as Speaker, you deprived this nation for 3 years in addressing the wage bill. That's what I'm saying. That's my point. As silent as it is.
Right, well, in another story, the Vice Chairman of the Human Rights Commission of Sierra Leone, Victor Elisa Lansana, and the Executive Secretary of the Human Rights Defendants Network, Sierra Leone, Alphonsus Bani, have condemned the killing of a police officer in McKinney. According to them, such an act is uncalled for and undermines the peace and security in the country.
Against our position very clearly. We condemn this act, in all its forms, because it's violence and lawlessness to the core. And as a country, we have come a long way. Over 30 years ago, we said that we were ending the war. And if we are ending the war, it means that the guns have to be silenced. And so a situation like this only retraces this country. And that is why we are calling on every individual Sierra Leonean to join us to condemn this act, just as we normally condemn when the police will also become unprofessional. So this one is something that all of us also should put our hands together to condemn, because it means that all of us are not safe. If we condone this act of lawlessness and terrorism, in fact, then you and I are no longer safe. Anybody could be picked up, anybody could be killed. It doesn't matter where you belong. It doesn't matter your political orientation or your religion. So that is why we are calling on every Sierra Leonean to condemn this act, to condemn the people, and to even ensure for those people within McKinney City to ensure that they render assistance to law enforcement officers to be able to give them the necessary information that they have, that they know, ensuring that they are able to, the police are able to arrest those who are, involved.
All right, and finally, update on the McKinney incident. Normalcy is gradually returning to McKinney after the alleged shooting and killing of ASP Matubenya by an unknown assassin on Saturday, 8 April. Well, our man Abbas Sise was out yesterday in the township to know the atmosphere.
Well, the current situation, normalcy has returned to the McKinney municipality. In fact, the middle of the township is full. Shops are open. Markets have returned to normalcy. bikes and people's moving up and down. Others are going to other places of work, others are going to other places of land. And so, normal life has returned to the McKinney municipality. Still giving them the assurance that, as long as they are going about their normal business, nobody will arrest them, nobody will attack them, as long as normal life has returned, so nothing absolutely inimical to their development, especially that their socio-economic development will happen to them.
Well, what was going on, I like yesterday, all our nothing happened. Don't expect that. It will happen. So all we did is give you time. We started moving our hostel. After we are there and just pray. The air we this election will take place. What will happen? So all things that we talk. All things that we talk, no, they keep. We really feel that.
All right, that is all we have in our top stories this morning. Back to Amadou and Zulai in our main studios.
Well, thank you very much, David Remy Wilson, for the top stories in the news this morning. We're still monitoring, the atmosphere for McKinney. We'll be bringing more updates to our viewers and listeners as and when we have them. In the show this morning, we'll be discussing the content of the reports by the Special Select Committee on Fake Degrees, that was tabled in Parliament, among other issues.
And we shall be speaking to Dr. Jonathan Sandy, who's the flag bearer for the National Unity and Reconciliation Party, NURP, on his plans on what he wants to achieve if voted for as President of the Republic of Sierra Leone.
Our quote for today says, all growth depends upon activity. There is no development physically or intellectually without effort, and effort means work. And it comes from Calvin Coolidge, an American attorney and politician who served as the 30th president of the United States of America. This Wake Up Salone, we take a quick message from our sponsor, Hotel Commercial Bank. We'll be back to start the conversation proper. Keep watching and listening.
Every day, the world wakes up to you. Millions of people are getting ready for you for shopping, travel expenses, utility bills, trade, and commerce. If we all have wishes, then what is your financial transaction wish?
I'd like to have a choice.
I'd like convenience.
I'd like to pay for goods and services on the go.
I'd like to pay utility bills on the go. Out of credit and data, buy some mobile top-up, still on my phone. Oops, lights out. I'll buy some ETSA, still on my phone.
I would like to make payment from my account to another account through my mobile phone.
As a CEO of a company, I would like my staff to receive their salaries through bulk e-payment without the risk of transporting cash.
Rokel Commercial Bank Simcopo does it all.
Rokel Commercial Bank Simcopo. Think of it as
Money when you're close to home and when you're away from home for unexpected expenses, and money for those times when cash fails.
If you can dream it, you can become it. If you can imagine it, you can achieve it.
Rokel Commercial Bank Simcopo is all you need.
We are now days away from Sierra Leone's dates with destiny, the June 24th general election. In this defining moment in the history of Sierra Leone, here at AYV, we recognize the mantle thrust upon us to be the voice of the nation fully.
We take our task to ensure fair coverage seriously. We intend to honor our pledge to you, to be your home of all things credible, factual, and all times balanced news. Totally. This is our commitment to you. We have witnessed non-stop hours of groundbreaking broadcast in an effort that saw AYV rolled out 8 studios across Sierra Leone at Tar Hill, Aberdeen, McKinney, Kenema, Bow, and London, with almost 3 kilometers of coaxial cable laid, connecting 4 ground teams that consume almost 100 liters of coffee from Chef Teina. The most important number is 2. Out of dozens of aspirants, only 2 men have emerged from the conventions in February as flag bearers of the APC and SLPP, retired Brigadier Julius Madabio and Dr. Samora Matthew Wilson Tamara.
So far, we
we have witnessed a lot of intrigues. Maybe this is the beginning. Defections and realignments have been plenty. We don't know if there's more to come.
The only thing you can guarantee right now is that your home of credible, factual, and balanced news and analysis, AYV Media Empire, will bring you every twist and turn of this amazing race in full color and in high definition.
We shall have a comprehensive look at the developments around the election as we count down to Sierra Leone's date with destiny.
Women clamored and got a law that provides 30% minimum quota in governance. Will that be achieved this June?
Well, one thing is clear. The nation has begun its conversation that will culminate a date with its destiny on the 24th of June. How much will change by then? And what shifts within the political landscape are we going to see? Find out more on the nation's biggest and most trusted news source, AYV, on Channel 33, on DSTV Channel 399, on Radio 101.7 FM, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and of course on TikTok.
Yes, indeed. Only AYP. Because AYP, Naim Salo Sabi.
Now, welcome back. This is Wake Up Sierra Leone on AYV. Don't forget to send your thoughts and comments to AYV News Facebook page. We'll make sure we'll take a look at them.
Definitely, we'll find time to read those comments out on issues we're discussing in the show this morning. In our first segment, in the studio, we have been joined by Dr. Jonathan Sandi, flag bearer for the National Unity and Reconciliation Party, NURP. Dr. Sandi is here to talk on his plans and what he wants to achieve if he becomes president of the Republic of Sierra Leone. Good morning, Dr. Sandi, and welcome.
Good morning, Lamrana. Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here.
It is a pleasure having you. So, congratulations on becoming the flag bearer.
Yes.
The NURP, you are contesting for the presidency for the second time.
Yes.
What has changed within the party itself? Because, most times people have to hear about political parties when it comes to elections, and afterwards they're gone. How were you elected?
I think let me take this opportunity, first of all, to thank AYV and all the media, whether print or mass media in Sierra Leone, for over the years having stand with the National Unity and Reconciliation Party. And as you know, 2018, we were one of the new kids in the block. What we said, our agenda at that time was to make sure we lay the foundation for getting into what we call contributing towards a change in political culture. So we came 1 week to the candidate nomination processes in 2017. We were registered formally by the National Political Party, then Political Party Registration Commission, now regulation, on the 20th of December 2017. So things have changed. Since that registration, we came in as the new kids in the block 1 week to the election, but we were able to lay the foundation gradually. We know change in political culture because, as we know, our slogan is cut across. We say we don't tire with Mendy line versus Stepney line. We want to see how we contribute towards a change in the political culture. So culture doesn't change over time. It takes a lot of time to mature. But I can tell you, from 2018 to now, the National Unity and Reconciliation Party, political ideology, shared vision has matured to the extent that our second national delegate convention, I'm very grateful to Allah and God Almighty that it went on very successfully. Imagine for 3 months we have been involved in the lower level election. We have not done our convention as other traditional parties we do. We have followed the rules and regulations laid down, procedures laid down by the Political Party Registration Commission. We did some mistakes. For example, when it started ward level election, the PPRC would say, "Well, we are not tell we." So we had to reverse and go and start again. Last 3 months, Lamrana, we have been, but what is very significant, what gave us this momentum was last year, AYV and many other since 2019, we have been celebrating January 18, which is defined as in a Truth and Reconciliation Commission report, recommendation 8, as a day of national reconciliation. And the question is, when celebrating the day of national reconciliation, which is synonymous to our party, you ask the fundamental questions. Are the victims of the war, are they in a better situation today or worse off? Those who were sexually abused during the war, the women, the amputees, the orphans. So we have managed to work with those demographic patterns, including youth and young girls who, I'm sorry to say this, many of who have resorted to commercial sex trade, and they have direct link to the post-war situation. So in that momentum, that has helped build the foundation for the National Unity and Reconciliation Party.
What the ideology on what ideology was the NURP formed, by you or the founding members of the party?
It's a shared vision. First of all, we are promoting, our ideologies around promoting the implementation of the TRC recommendations, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Remember, I was Chief of Staff of National Security with President Tijan Kaba. Of course, I'm sure you have the institutional memory. When I left the shores of Sierra Leone in 2004 and 5, after we completed the war, on January 18, 2002, when Tijan Kaba, late President Tijan Kaba, went to Lunge Airport in the midst of the African Union, the United Nations, ECOWAS, and all the parties to the conflict. Major General Paul Kuruma was there, and then in proxy, Fode Sanko wasn't there, but there was Colonel Issa Sise. He declared the war over. I mean, that was significant. And I was part of that joining, moving Sierra Leone, where President Kaba led our nation in terms of the conflict transformation spectrum, led our nation from conflict, from war to peace. So after that situation, I left in 2004 and 5, and then was part of UNDP here. But what I know very well, I haven't gone through that conflict transformation part in terms of moving from war to peace, to post-war recovery, peace consolidation, and then post-war reconstruction and development, and laying the foundation for sustainable development. I think that trajectory, we have missed something. And I knew, having worked with Tijan Kaba and that regime, the Tijan Kaba regime, for almost 7 to 8 years, to a decade, with that institutional memory, while I've been sitting back in Nairobi or in Geneva and then in Switzerland and many places where the UN has been rotating me, I kept saying to myself, are we missing something? Remember, after the TRC, Bishop Pompa, J.C. Ompa, published the report in 2004, a lot of the recommendations were made, and the commission was suddenly closed down. In other words, after investigation and publishing the report and recommendation, most of which were related to what were the drivers and root causes of the war. Bad governance, corruption, wasteful spending, gross human rights issues are all in that report. So Sierra Leone went into war because of this thing, one-party state. I mean, you remember those things. I'm sure you were small boys, but we suffered a lot in our generation. To the extent that our generation were either at some point where we had our generation, at some point, Sierra Leoneans had different names. Either you are IDP, you are a combatant, or you are a refugee. There was nobody who wasn't part of that.
Is the ideology of NURP centered around security, the TRC recommendation, its implementation, based on your background as someone who's worked in the security sector? This is Dr. Sandy's idea. This is what I want to push, rather than a collective ideology of which you have different ideas of different people to lead or to change what they think is not right for the country.
It's a shared vision. Yes, somebody based on my own institutional memory. I mean, in any command structure, if it's command and control, you must have a lead. Somebody, my job has been to facilitate that. Remember, we started when, part of the thing when I wanted to, but I have to be honest, when I wanted to transition to a national politician, to say, I remember when I was leaving for the UN, on this corridor of State House, His Excellency President Tijan Kaba called me. I was hesitant to escape. Imagine you have been trained to lead, I must confess, the nation's intelligence services. And I was losing that. So I was very panicked. So how do I manage my transition to go to the United Nations when I got the job? But he gave me courage, come here. He said, I know when you go to the United Nations, do as I have done in my life. You say, I was in the civil servant. I worked up to 1967, 68, and I left for the United Nations. But I made sure when I retired, I came back to move Sierra Leone from war to peace. So I want you, at some point, think about our legacy. So this particular election, I am on a mission to help put Sierra Leone back on track where Tijan Kaba left it. I know that he moved this country from war to peace, meaning the security sector reform program, the DDR, reform of the defense and security sector, reform of the civil service and the public sector, including reform of the financial sector, meaning bringing income tax, custom together through the National Revenue Authority. I was part of that process. I have that institutional memory. And therefore, however, since he left, we have seen multiple and complex challenges coming back to the nation state between former President Ernest Koroma and now this regime headed by His Excellency Brigadier Mada Bio. So those gaps, the root causes of the conflict, which are outlined in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, have started seeing the things again. In fact, now it's worse. We are seeing identity politics, tribal and regional politics has hyper. We are a highly polarized society now. And on the basis of my knowledge, I've been served the continent. I just came 3 weeks ago from Libya. I am leading a project there on political mediation. In May, there's what we call National Political Dialogue in Libya. Currently, I have a split line. Where I do national politics, externally, I continue to supply Africa as well. I am currently the chairperson for the African Union Peace and Security Council. So when I go to provide support at the regional and continental level, I see these things. 2 years ago, I led the process in South Sudan to give South Sudan what we call one peace-building strategic framework, where I was anchored in the Ministry of Peace Building with Dr. Stephen Coyle, the minister himself, tutelage him, coach him on how we can put South Sudan on track. The same situation in South Sudan, where electoral competition has become the meal ticket for tribes, the Dinka versus the Noel, the Bari, and the Achole. So now in South Sudan, for example, Lambrana, you will see, apart from President Salva Kiir, you have 4 vice presidents based on each tribe. Identity politics is part of this. Rwanda, we saw the situation in Rwanda between the two in 1994 that led to the genocide. We also saw in 2007 and 2008 what led to the conflict in Kenya between the Kikuyus and the Luos, when it was Raila Odinga versus the same is ongoing in Ethiopia between the Tigris versus the Oromo. As I speak, that is the conflict now going on. So on those bases, when I come back home, the question you ask, if I have that institutional memory, both on the continent and my country, and I see we are highly polarized along politics of exclusion, tribalism, wasteful spending, and corruption, I think we have the obligation to say no. The opposite of divisiveness, exclusion, is national unity. And that's why we started with, we say, our mission is to ensure that we unite the strength of our people to be able to secure economic prosperity for all. Without national unity, we cannot secure or benefit from the national resources we have in this country. And that is my mission, and that's the mission of the National Unity and Reconciliation.
Thank you. Let me come in there. Of these institutional reforms, in one of the interviews you did, I think it was back in 2020, you made it clear that on the institutional reforms, you have plans to move the country from what you called public administration to public governance. What's the difference between that?
There are two differences. You know, my master's degree was in public policy and management from the University of Manchester. And I was taught by Professor Barrentos that the theories around how do you move a nation state from public administration, which was traditional bureaucratic principal agent, where you have the principal, which is the minister, and then the agent is the permanent secretary. And we saw over many decades in public policy management, the public administration, which is a transitional model, that's characterized with a lot of corruption, where the minister and the permanent secretary, you know, the civil service in a country, and we must be honest, they are the heart. They will tell you, civil servants will tell you, but ministers come and go, but we will stay. So therefore, you will see a genuine minister come in every nation state, and then what you saw in the past, and even now, the permanent secretary or the director general, who is the vote controller, will tell you Mr. Minister, you fear not do, you fear not do. The main source of, I come from national security and I deal with economic intelligence. The main source of corruption can come from the civil service, where you have one principal, one agent. That we call the principal agent theory, where the minister, that's the public administration, where the permanent secretary is the big boss. But what new public governance is saying, you need to move the state from public administration, which is between the minister and then the permanent secretary, lack of accountability, transparency, to involve public governance. Public governance is a Venn diagram. Here you have the state, the role of the civil society, the role of the local government decentralization. But at what point do they interact? How does media interface into that? So, because these are all instruments of national power. The 5 instruments of national power also involve the media, the journalists, the civil society, bringing them to the space. When I was taught that model, how do you move a state from public administration and public governance? It helped to be trust in state institutions. The nation state itself is small. If you check our current civil service or public sector number of personnel, it is not up to 50,000 to 100 or 200 or 400, 1 million. We are 8.2 million people, but our civil service cannot be 1 million. In that context, the nation state is small. So how do you ensure that non-state actors, such as you, can be involved into that policy-making, decision-making, so that we can build trust and deliver services for the people, public goods that could make. But if you leave journalists out, you leave civil society out, you leave the local traditional authorities out, you leave the youths, you leave the amputees, you exclude them, the victims of war, then you are not achieving public governance. Public governance is about the state and non-state actors. Then they can trust that the state can deliver services to the poor. At the moment, electricity problem, data, you don't negotiate with people. You just say, okay, today I am increasing the data for mobile phone and engage people in public governance. That's what Tijan Kaba called inclusive governance.
Speaking on trust in public institutions, I want to take your attention particularly to the judiciary, which was part of the TRC report. Yep. There's this huge lack in trust in the judiciary. If you win, let's say, this election, what are some of the reforms that you think would be necessary to be made in that particular area?
First of all, I have my vision, I'm sure it will be declined this week, what we call the JPJ Big Six agenda. I hope the Big Six agenda. Okay. I'm coming with a Big Six agenda. How do I see the future of Sierra Leone? The future of Sierra Leone I want for my people with a shared vision are along that Big Six agenda. Number one is to enhance national unity. I think the core challenges now, as you all know, we are highly polarized along ethnic identity politics. 8 speeches for each honor. So at what point do we enhance political cooperation among the 18 tribes and 17 political parties we have? And I will do that through, we have discussed this with Lambra and many, the 21 years after war, we have not been able to complete the National Constitutional Review process. For God's sake, that constitution, when we were in Lome, was agreed by parties to the conflict that it should be the new state building project for Sierra Leone. The 1991 constitution, we all agree, made us a one-party state. Too much power in the hands of the supreme authority. The independence of the judiciary is not there. In Kenya, for example, when we facilitated the 2010 National Constitutional Review process, it was made clear the judiciary should be independent on its own. The appointment of the Chief Justice, for example, is televised nationally. AYV will put us here on whatever, and people listen to the interview when they shortlist. I will do that. I will facilitate a process where the Chief Justice and judges, when they are being recruited, it will be an open thing so that people, the media can facilitate that. Then we get the best Sierra Leonean to do. So that it could not be a top-button approach. But at the moment, as you know, the 1991 Constitution, Lambrana and my dear sister, it is highly convoluted, where power is centered on one person. For God's sake, the Constitution, some people tell me, the Constitution is sweet. It's not about sweet. It's about making sure that we build trust and relationship among our people. So what I will do clearly, under that, I have defined in what I call the Big Six, number 4 agenda. But let me go back. Number 2 is really about fixing the economy. If we are not together, that's why our priority, as our ideology say, the national unity and social cohesion building. When we are together as a unit of effort, the fishermen call it catch per unit of effort. No fisherman will go without horsepower, without the boat, without engine and that. So they put things together and then they catch fish collectively. So we, as 18 tribe, 17 political party, I want to facilitate that process where we can enhance political cooperation to secure the new constitution. And I will empower, I will make sure I take back the constitution process to the Law Reform Commission. The Law Reform Commission was established by Act of Parliament. Why did we remove the constitutional review process into a committee? That is a top-bottom approach. I want to facilitate a bottom-top approach where Sierra Leone will be inspired. The constitution-making process is not an act of parliament. It is supreme rule of law. And one of those issues will be the judiciary. Second, fixing the economy. The economy is not working for every Sierra Leonean. We know that. The amputees have been excluded. They tell me, Pa, you name not come. When they go to some of these institutions, whether it's NAXA or not, we have been excluding them. These guys died for democracy. Their ones were chopped. They say, Etina, when I go vote for Tijan Kaba, we are going to. This is what happened. Why are we so wicked? They have been excluded from the economy. And therefore, we know the economy again, we know the economic crisis, cost of living, high economic hardship is there. I will not leave public policy prior to fix the economy there. I'll do free education. I'll make sure our national investment, our national consolidated fund, public priority will go towards fixing the economy. Number 3 is to increase food production. I want to invest more in agriculture sector to make sure that crops, livestock, and fisheries, we have enough. A country that is hungry, people do not have resilience, they are hungry, they are not. Sierra Leone has suffered a lot. We need to reprioritize our public policy priority that can increase food production. And then people can, research, UNDP and many others show that Sierra Leone have 75% of our population are basic consumers. We are not producing. We are a nation of consumption. We depend on aid dependency. At what point do we move Sierra Leone, 75% consumers, to production? I want to see my economic policy is to move this country from a 75% consumers to 75% or more producer. We need to move our nation from a consumption state to a production state. So I know how to do that through the manufacturing, to the mining. That is coming. Number 4, how do we promote equality and inclusion? I just mentioned youth. Unemployment rate of youth is low. The young girls are suffering. Many of them are resorting to commercial trade. They have been excluded from the economy. We want to see the victims of war, the sexually abused, the amputees being part of equity. Research have said 10,000 leones each Sierra Leone make through the National Revenue Authority. 10,000 leones. By research by Oxfam, UNDP says 46% of that 10,000 leones goes to the rich. That is the political appointees and the public, the politician, with the political elite, we consume 46% of that 10,000 leones each, which means only 16% goes to 50 or more percent of the population. That is 1,600 leones is what gets out of every 10,000 leones. Look at the income inequality. The income inequality between the rich and the poor is very heavy. We need to ensure we stimulate social development investment program for the youth. And then NAXA is not functioning anymore. We need to empower, review the Act of Parliament to make sure that our social protection scheme, the ex-servicemen are suffering. Some of them laid their lives for this country, but we have not been able. They sexually abuse women. They are there and suffering. I can tell you, my dear sister, when I went to Kono, yeah, mama, I suffered. Who is that? I call my girlfriend. Double amputee. You cannot believe what you call pistolate for a woman. I'm sorry to tell this. Every month, there are women in this country, our mothers, our sisters, who have to go to the medical. They were raped by 70 men during the war. They are still there. I celebrated, I put smile in their face during December. And we have been on this, Lamranda. The vision is not waiting for politics until campaign time. Indeed. For the last 4 years, we have been celebrating January 18th every year as a day of reconciliation with these victims. I care about them. I care about the poor.
Dr. Sandy, with all this vision, I can still recall your plans for the last election. In the last election, the presidential election, you pulled 0.1%.
I came for name recognition.
That's just, you got only 2,318 of the total votes cast. And you were one of the least performers in that presidential race.
Yes.
And with all these ideas, where are you getting the inspiration or hope of
It's
contesting
very
and winning
different.
again?
I told you, you cannot be a king without a kingdom. I was coming from the United Nations. 1 week to election, 3 months, December 20, then December 20 when they registered our party. Then 1 week after that, we went into candidate nomination process to submit names. Where was I going to get councillors? Do you want me to waste money or re-engineer or MP? We managed to put on councillors and MP. But as I said, I was a new kid on the block. I didn't even go to my village.
What has changed 5 years?
Things have changed. I've been to
What?
Moyamba, I've been to Bo, my mother's land, everybody know. I went to the village in Kwayama. I've been to celebrate traditional authorities. I've gone to my grandfather's grave. I say, I'm here to battle for redemption of the soul of the people. I want to come and ensure I live permanently to put Sierra Leone back on track where Tijankaba left it. And people are listening. Now, 1,200 delegates were there. Ask your staff, they were there. This is different. We now have wards, 446 wards. We now have constituencies, 132 to 35 constituencies. We've done election. We now have districts, 16 district delegates were here. Then we now have the national executive is functioning. So the national political infrastructure that will respond to bring more votes is here not to stay. So what I'm saying
are you into this to win, or you still continue with the name recognition? You want to be known.
No, the investment Ramranda we are putting to the look. I have a clear, none of these candidates that have coming up has a clear campaign message for this thing. I'm the only guy who have said, I will move Sierra Leone from where we are, from consumption to production. I've also said we'll promote equality and inclusion, which is exclusion. We are excluding certain vulnerable populations. I've also said we'll rebuild public trust in our police, in our ONS, in our security, the judiciary spoke about. I'm ready to make sure we rebuild. We used to call it Force for Good when I was in State House. The police reform, which was led by the security sector reform, which I led and contributed with my colleagues in State House, we will make sure we rebuild that trust. The police partnership board is not working. The concept of community policing, which you interact between society and then the police, that level of trust is reducing. You saw what happened in McKinney. How are we engaged in what we call community police strategy? I am bringing back a process of this. I'm very sure that people will listen to me.
What's your strategy to win this election? Because it seems the messages are the same. We've spoken to a lot of, yesterday we had the NDA flag bearer here. It was the same issue, address unemployment, national reconciliation, and all of that. So what's your own strategy? If you read the manifesto.
My campaign message is simple. It's about putting Sierra Leone back on track beyond politics of exclusion and corrupt regimes.
Okay.
That's my message.
And that is what you think
that's what I'm campaigning on. And I'm campaigning that I say I'm qualified, I believe I'm qualified experience to offer 6 policy priorities. It's clear. I'm not mixing on them. Unemployment is just a sum. It's an outcome. I said the country challenge right now, we are not together as a nation and a people. First priority is to ensure facilitate dialogue and make sure we bring Sierra Leoneans and make sure the only way we can do that, one priority we can do that is to make sure we've completed the constitutional review process and send it to referendum. And that takes minimum 1 to 2 years. I know I've supported, facilitated through UNDP in Nairobi constitutional. We need to inspire Sierra Leoneans. Sierra Leoneans are not inspired. They are resilient. So that's a clear message. How do we enhance political cooperation among all tribes? It's unique. There's nobody in that. Number 2, I've told you that when you do that, then everybody can be together to fix the economy. I've said the monetary policy, the exchange rate. I am an economist. That's what I do in Fulbright College.
That's the campaign message. That's the campaign message.
Macroeconomic, IMF and World Bank, which other candidates have studied all throughout the central bank, cannot work.
Quickly before Zulai comes in, what I'm asking is, what's your strategy to get the votes? The message, this is the message you gave the last time. This is the message other candidates are giving, or our flag bearers are giving out there. What's your own strategy to get the votes, to increase your vote from 0.1%?
Let's be straight. Look at the billboards. Where's the message there? Talk and do. There's no message here. I'm talking about you as a candidate. When you do my message, can I, as a politician, it's a game theory. If I give my strategy on the year, you work on it. Let's be honest. I said I want to campaign on fixing the economy, rebuilding that's my plan. Number 4, I told you I want to make sure we rebuild public trust in state institutions, which is diminished. Lastly, I want to see how we can intensify our international engagement to ensure that we improve, we promote foreign trade investment, we make sure it's a business, we attract foreign direct investment. Those are clear. Having put those agenda, it is clear to me that no other candidate have the ability and skill to manage Sierra Leone domestic and foreign policy needs. This is what I do. So Sierra Leone cannot survive. We live in a world of interdependency, globalization and regionalism. Around the Mano River Union, we have 4 member states. ECOWAS, there are 16. And then you have the African Union, which has 1.3 billion. The question in my head is, Sierra Leone having worked on the continent across and everywhere, how can Sierra Leone, 8.2 million people, survive in a world of interdependency? That's what is in my mind. Meaning, for example, after the war, when Sierra Leone was put after war, most of the things where our economy has come, cost of living and working conditions for people have come down. They have been influenced by external shocks. One, Ebola came in 2013 and 14. Number 2, we see COVID-19 came. Now, for example, I know what is in the sub-region. How do I reduce the risk and uncertainty associated with violent extremism and terrorism, which have started? We know that Burkina Faso, Mali, and all this. So I want to see Sierra Leone border management, border security and management, whether it's through the air, land, and sea, is what I do. No candidate can offer border security and management. The threats and survival of Sierra Leone depend on the risks and uncertainties, whether global health crisis, Ebola, COVID-19, and now we know small arms and light railway. I was regional director for small arms and drugs for West Africa, based in Bamako for 4 years. So I know that the threat to our survival with our fragile institutions, the law reform, the law enforcement agency and the criminal justice system, they are weak. So I have the ability to fight even to the threat to our economy. I'm coming with an economic security agenda. And that means the threat and risk to our economy is wasteful spending, where it's state capture, organized crime, and laying the foundation for financial corruption. I have the skills to empower the criminal justice system to investigate, prosecute, and convict people who will jail people. The anti-corruption should not be about recovery. How can you get a recovery strategy? Say, when you don't thief money, you have to go and pay back, then it's finished. No, we should be jailing ministers. And I'm coming with that with my background in national security and the criminal justice system and rule of law. We'll make sure the corruption works for people. And my strategy to win the number of votes is clear. I have a party. The party structures I've explained to you. It is how they function effectively to send out the campaign message.
Let's talk about this, your structure, the party structure generally. What about the presence of women in your party? We haven't heard a lot about that. Tell us about that.
Good news for you. You'll be very joyful. Our new National Secretary General is Christina Bondo, the National Secretary General who was elected 2 days ago on Saturday. She's a lady, young lady. Number 2, one of the most interesting elections that happened, my dear sister, during the convention, was the election of electing the National Women's Leader. Guess what happened? The incumbent women's leader went neck to neck with a war victim, national amputee. It was tense. She won. The war victim, Madam Adama Suma, won by 2 votes. It was so thrilling. I'm happy that my colleagues like Madam Femi Cole, the Ahmed Tijani Foundation, the PPRC, the ECF, everyone was there. The election was so amazing. So the meeting the 30% threshold, I can be gracefully tell you that our national executive, with number 3, number 1, number 2, number 3, 2 after 1, will meet those criteria. And we are very happy that we have the financial secretary of our party, the national, is a woman as well. So we have been able, in fact, in the executive, which I'm inheriting after Saturday, I'm very grateful that we have that. At the party structures, in every ward, we have 9 positions elected. One of them is the World Women Empowerment Leader. Then the same for constituencies. Constituency World Women Empowerment. The same for district. So in terms of political architecture, political party architecture, from the ward level, which is the minimum, the basic, to the constituency, to the district, to the regional. For example, I'm very grateful that Madam Zainab Toure is the regional women's leader for the National Regional Organizing Secretary, for example, is Janet Sia Koroma. So I'm telling you, I'm very sensitive to women needs, and I believe we will not survive without you people. I know what my family is doing to me. I know how much I have benefited from women. Behind any successful man, there must be Lambra and I, a successful one. So I believe that the new women that are coming, Adama Suma, a new national women's leader, who is an amputee, war victim, she will do the best we can do for the people, the women, the vulnerable women who go to bed without feeding their kids. I'm also happy that we have Christiana as a National Secretary General to push that. So in fulfillment of the gimme, do we call it the gimme? The gender. So I'm very happy that without influence, we managed to. It was a very delicate process.
Now, with the percentage Lamrana just spoke about, and now the PPRC has put a ban on public rallies and rather instituted it with, gatherings, town hall meetings, as they call it. Don't you think it will be easier for you since your party do not have that number of crowd, or do you buy the idea? Are you in support of that?
When you say crowd, I really understand. My focus is the votes. The votes. Any candidate, what is now in my head, how do I get 55% of 3.7 million people who registered for surrender? That's what you do. My campaign message, when I do my campaign plan for winning, the winning plan, it's a science. 55%, which by constitution is which is about 1.7 million. That's what is in my head. I work backwards. I've been doing this. So my strategy then, how do I get that to win? So part of that is 3.7. The voter register last 18 was less than what we have now. And in that case, we understanding that, okay, Falaba, for example, while Ibrahim Kuroma is my party chairman, the voter register seems to suggest that you have 183,000 voters. So my question to him, as part of my strategy, my brother was asking, how do we influence that voter register? For every 16 district, that's what it is. It's a clear strategy. So what it means is that we invest, we do not want, I was number one, because I also I'm also leading a project for West Africa called Democracy, Election, and Unconstitutional Change of Government. And the trigger point for identity politics and conflict is really part of it, disruption, is rallies. So even in the United States, in Nigeria, I'm sure one of you were in Nigeria, street rallies are gone. The point is not only cost effective, but what government does in every society now is to designate specific place, they provide security, and then you are there. Remember, as we move, you be in Africa, just as we say Lambrana, when the momentum starts, now you are going to start seeing the cut across momentum. I'll be vulnerable as well as a young party and young people. So getting street rallies might be not productive as we move into that. And from a national security perspective, I think it does not augur well. It is better we have designated place, the National Stadium, how do we call the Atuga Stadium, the YWCA, places that we can say today, the police, for example, we did our national convention, we could have danced on the streets. Not that we don't have the number, we do. But we went to Culture Radio, the conference center, outside Grafton, and the whole compound was ours. Eat and drink, dine, play music. But I think it is better for preventing elections, electoral and political election violence. It is better we have the designated places so that we can manage that. In fact, do you know in our Public Election Act, Ramdanda, T-shirts to give, like for example, people know my party. When I go out, they say, sir, now that cap we want, now that T-shirt. I said, no, we are not a party for T-shirt and caps. It's a crime, it's a criminal offense by the Public Election Act to give T-shirts and flyers to person free. I give it to my staff, my party members who buy it, who put it on, but to say, to influence people. So rallies, T-shirts, flyers is gone. We should be looking at public policy issues that people can solve that. That's my own
Let's take a few comments on our Facebook page. Then we'll take summary. Then we'll come back to you. To continue the program. This one from Anes Barimon is saying, Mr. Sandi knows the issues of this country. To be honest with you, his policies are all outstanding.
The other one says, it's from Swissman, Dr. Sandy. You worked in the United Nations. Did you ever extend your hand in our villages like Moyamba and Bo like to help your people with water, school, hospital, and education.
Ronald Beresford says, Mr. Sandy, your party and the other parties together as a coalition can only be the way forward for Sierra Leone. Instead of the two oldest parties, and that the powers are equal, then Sierra Leone has a chance to develop. Otherwise, it's business as usual.
Ibrahim Salam Kaloko says, this man has a prophetic idea, which is caring for the less privileged people. May Allah grant him victory.
Fode Bundu says, anyone can have a very solid campaign message, but the chances of voters that have stuck their heads in the APC and SLPP will be very difficult.
Swissman again says, Dr. Sandy, how many farms do you have and how many investments have you done to this country?
The final one I'll take is from Abdul Kabo. He says, another KKY appears. Sweet talk and good policies. Let's see how he'll perform in the polls.
And for me, the final one says, please ask him about his position on the voters' identification card.
Those are the messages we could take for now, the comments as well. Let's take the news summary with David Remivitsin. We'll be coming back to continue with Dr. Sandy from the NURP.
Right, well, in our top stories this morning, Sierra Leone is among the many countries which has a huge inequality gap regarding wages and salaries. However, in a bid to address this disparity, Parliament has enacted the Wages and Compensation Commission Act 2023. During the passage, Honorable Abdul Karim Kamara pointed that the country's wage is now super bloated as compared to 2017, while the leader of government business, Honorable Matthew Yuma, said the bill will fix the salary structure and address the disparity in wages.
And at the time we were talking of that, the wage bill was at 1.9 trillion. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, for the record, the Minister of Finance is here. We're having a wage bill now that is about 4.8 trillion. I am referencing this because I want to make it clear that what we have before us is a bill that will seek to address issues that will have been addressed before we have a super bloated wage bill we have now. Because if it was 1.9 and it was referred to as a bloated wage bill, if we would have passed this this bill long before now into our act, we would have addressed the inequalities and the unprecedented strikes that occurred in Sierra Leone within the last 4 years. Saying in 2017, you refer to the wage bill as bloated. In 2020, you had the opportunity as members of parliament to deal with this bill to address the issue of a bloated wage bill. And we took 3 years depriving this nation in addressing the addressing the problem we saw in 2017. So I am saying, under your leadership as Speaker, you deprived this nation for 3 years in addressing the wage bill. That's what I'm saying. That's my point. As silent as it is.
Right, well, in another story, the Vice Chairman of the Human Rights Commission of Sierra Leone, Victor Elisa Lansana, and the Executive Secretary of the Human Rights Defenders Network, Sierra Leone, Alphonsus Bani, have condemned the killing of a police officer in McKinney. According to them, such an act is uncalled for and undermines the peace and security in the country.
Against our position very clearly, we condemn these acts, in all its forms, because it's violence and lawlessness to the core. And as a country, we have come a long way. Over 30 years ago, we said we were ending the war. And if we are ending the war, it means that the guns have to be silenced. And so a situation like this only regressives this country. And that is why we are calling on every individual Sierra Leonean to join us to condemn this act, just as we normally condemn when the police also become unprofessional. So this one is something that all of us also should put our hands together to condemn, because it means that all of us are not safe. If we condone this act of lawlessness and terrorism, in fact, then you and I are no longer safe. Anybody could be picked up, anybody could be killed. It doesn't matter where you belong. It doesn't matter your political orientation or your religion. So that is why we are calling on every Sierra Leonean to condemn this act, to condemn the people, and to even ensure for those people within McKinney City to ensure that they render assistance to law enforcement officers to be able to give them the necessary information that they have, that they know, ensuring that they are able to, the police are able to arrest those who are, involved.
All right, and finally, update on the McKinney incident. Normalcy is gradually turning to McKinney after the alleged shooting and killing of ASP Matubenya by an assassin on Saturday, 8 April. Well, our man Abbas Sise was out yesterday in the township to know the atmosphere.
Well, the current situation, normalcy has returned to the McKinney municipality. In fact, the middle of the township is full. Shops are open. Markets have returned to normalcy. Bikes and vehicles are moving up and down. Others are going to other places of work. Others are going to other places of land. And so, normalcy, normal life has returned to the McKinney municipality. Still giving them the assurance that as long as they are going about their normal business, nobody will arrest them, nobody will attack them, as long as normal life has returned, so nothing absolutely inimical to their development, especially their socio-economic development, will happen to them.
Well, we have to say that I like to say so happen today, so we always come at home. Like yesterday, we all in our own state. This happens, don't expect that. It will happen. So we all be there in the time, we start up in our own set, after we are there and just say, we election will take place. What did it happen? So all in our job. Everything that we talk about, the we really fix that.
All right, that is all we have in our top stories this morning. Back to Yamadu and July in our main studios.
Well, thank you very much, David and Wilson, for the news summary. This is Wake-Up Salone on AYV Television. We're on channel 3, on DSTV, channel 399, on Radio FM 101.7, and streaming live on our Facebook page, AYV News. We still have Dr. Jonathan Sandi, flag bearer of the National Unity and Reconciliation Party, the NURP, with us in the studio. Doc, you've had some of the comments, and I think there was a question as well. You might want to respond to them.
Yeah, I think I'm very grateful and thankful to those who contributed on the conversation we're having. Your questions were, your interviews are very challenging, but I think we managed to pull it out for people to understand the conversation that is going on. Many of them, I'm very grateful they are positive, and obviously it's inspiring. My job is to inspire Sierra Leoneans. I really want to make sure I inspire the 8.2 million people to move our nation, as I say, through a united effort. There are two that were very personal, things that have to do where my mom comes from, where my dad comes from. I hear people say, how much contribution? Can you tell us how much you've done in Bo? Because that's where my mom comes from. And then the Moyamba is also where my grandmother is lying. So I know that some of these things, but people definitely, these are personal, but I will just mention, because in campaigns, I've never seen President Tijan Kawa or any president refer, you ask them, what have they done for their nation can come in. If I start the history of what I've done for Sierra Leone, we will spend the rest of the day here, because from the fisheries sector, when I was fisheries economics, I worked in the Ministry of Marine and Fishery Resources and Agriculture. I know how much we mobilized from Conakry, from Yeliboya, from Godrich, from Tombo, Chenge, along the west-northwest coast of Sierra Leone, contributed a lot through a revolving fund, which was 300 million pounds, 300 million European Union, based in a revolving fund, which we are supporting fishermen, communities. So there are a lot of, when I was head of UNDP here, as head of governance, justice, and rule of law, I did a lot of projects again to post-war reconstruction, development, particularly in Moyamba. For example, the Justice Sector Development Program. I personally influenced how it could start with Moyamba and Bo, not because I come, because I also went to school in boys' school, Mabroka, my family is from that end. So the ideology of a cut across thing is not centered because where my mom, because for example, I was born in Kono. Guess what, Lambrana? On the day which is coming off, it's going to be June 24. I was born in Kwedo Hospital. So it's going to be, I'm looking forward to how Sierra Leoneans will give me that birthday gift by voting for me on my birthday, so that I can move. It's an inspirational, because even the Quran and the Bible, the name Jonathan. That's how the Hebrew called me. But Jonathan means a gift from God. And I'm sure I'm here to battle for redemption of the soul of this country. I have that conviction. So the two questions that came, yes.
She had another question. Was it about farms?
No, there are two questions.
The one was about the farms, and the second one.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying, the farm. And then the farm, I have farming, I'm doing. That's why I say it's personal. But
you're public. People want
but
to
I
know.
want people to know that I have started this 3 or 4 years ago. I hope FAO colleagues are watching. There is this concept of a decade of family farming initiative, which the UN from 2019 to 2028. So having been part of that conceptual thinking, and I always believe that food production through agriculture is part of the answer to Africa, especially Sierra Leone. We need to produce what we eat. Import substitution cannot help. So with that concept from 2019, after the election, I have been down to Teyama, to Mbaumo, how do you call it? Pendebu, Mbaumo, Boliland, we have that. That's why I come to, I'm doing farming, let me call that. So the people, even my farm supervisor, I'm sure he's online, PC Farmer is a young PC William Farmer is my farm supervisor. My elder brother, Henry, also does the same in my motherland in Kwayama. The tractors are very grateful to government because of the tractor, those who manage the tractor services. I'm only worried this year, when it comes to plowing, they have increased the cost of tractor. Say, for you to have 1 hour, 2 hour, and the villagers are now telling me, oh, sir, they say it's 2,500,000 for 1 hour or 2 hour, and that is too heavy. So when I live here, for example, this has stimulated me to pass through the Minister of Agriculture to negotiate.
Swissman is still asking that while you were working in the UN, what did you do in terms of building schools, hospitals, and
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You build schools. I was here at UNDP. I was worked in government. We built schools. I facilitated conceptualized projects myself. When I worked for the West Northwest Artisanal Fishery and Community Development Project, Rosino, the jetty in Rosino, between Mambolo and Rosino. It was my idea. The schools in Yeliboya, the hospital in Bailo, in Mahera, in Lunge, in Tombo, in many places. I sat down through Naxa, Triple Har. By then, I wrote projects myself, my ideas, and I did that. In the United Nations, I started my career here as a national staff, head of governance. I was the first senior United Nations staff after the war, Sierra Leonean here. Only 5 people, Victor Angelo, Nasir Asanga, Samuel Abbo, and Jonathan Sanders. So in that process, I brought a lot of the Peace Consolidation Strategy Project, which President Nkrumah inherited, $35 million, which Sierra Leone was the first country to qualify. I wrote it. I went to New York, I defended it. So I have done in my own little way. When I was in Bamako as regional director for West Africa, I sent $4 million to Sierra Leone alone, 1 million force. Here, by State House, the National Committee to establish the National Commission for Small Arms and Light Weapons.
Dr. Sandy.
So all of this in terms of schools, farming, and this, those are past. We've done that. I'm saying is the future we want to solve, cost of living crisis, economic hardship, high transportation. Who is best placed to give the idea, the solution to it? That's the solution.
Time is against us, and I really want to bring this person in. Earlier, you were making mention that it's about theories, ideas, and strategies, not crowd. When you go to rallies, would not necessarily, you do not buy that idea. So this person here is saying, Mr. Sandy, where is your political base? In brackets, your stronghold. They still want to know.
My stronghold is the amputees, number one, across the nation, the war victims, because the National Unity and Reconciliation is about victims of war. So across the 16 districts, Paul Hussein Bangura, my chairman and leader in Maboroka, is listening to me. Pat Tambafona, the chairman for our party in Bombali district, who was here, they are all listening. Alpha Con, you go to Victor, you go to Salim Mohammed in Cambia, they are all listening, they are all here. So our party is a national party. And when they talk about stronghold, it's not about, I'm a Mende by my tribe. So naturally, for example, I do not oppose SLPP because my surname, for example, everybody, when we sit here, Lamran, I know my friends, you know my brothers, we are all here, we know each other. For example, this election is not about APC, SLPP, or NURP for presidential, I mean. It is really who has the ability and skills to move Sierra Leone from where we are to resolve those challenges we face. Because as you say, Jonathan, people understand, my dear sister. But as you ask Sandy, they say identity, sociologists say identity perception of Sierra Leoneans. As you say, I am Jonathan, they will say, okay, it's fine, it's a Creole boy. But as you say, put Sandy, they say, it's SLPP. So that's how we have fixed our country. As you say, Ogbula, you say Oture, those names are associated, we have fixed them, Tula, Ogbula, Tolly, to the APC. We need to unravel that. That's what I'm working, the ideology you spoke about, cut across. We need to overcome the identity, ethnic, regional thinking that we should not be campaigning or voting based on Mandela versus Knight. No, we have passed that. A nation should go back. So when it comes to base, I can say, for example, okay, now I'm going to my village, I'm doing farming. It's a base. I can say I'm going to Bo, my mother's home. I'm amended the tyranny of numbers, we are 31%. I can capitalize on that. I can then go, I'm seeing it coming. But I do not want to say, when you say cut across, I mean sincerely, I went to school in Maduoka, I was born in Kono, I went to school in Masanke Primary School, I worked in the fishery sector in the north. So we are Sierra Leoneans, for God's sake.
It's around 75 days now to the June 24th elections. Yes. You've still not prepared your manifesto yet?
No, everything. I just gave you that.
No, you just explain your plans. You just
everything is set, and next week you will see another wonder.
Okay, so
the other wonder is we are displaying our manifesto. But besides manifesto,
you'll be launching your manifesto next week. Is that what
maybe a joint manifesto will come?
A joint manifesto?
Don't worry, it will come. You are talking about political strategy. It's a game.
I want to get that clear. A joint manifesto.
There's nothing wrong for a joint manifesto
with another political party.
I'm saying yes, Lamran. I know you are. This is not hot seat.
No, I'm asking. I'm just asking. What you said is very.
It's very interesting
to make it clear for the public.
The cut across ideology always has been based on closing the gap between different political parties. And if it's going to be that way, let's accept it if it happens. But I'm saying it personally, we have the National Unity and Reconciliation. First of all, we are launching my statement of declaration. It's a policy agenda. Then the manifesto is ready. If that's what you want, my guys.
Are you in alliance with, or are you in talks with?
Political strategies, when they are mature, press releases, media advisory note, we come to your office. You are a manager. It will come to you. Wait for a minute, it will come.
No, but you mentioned passively that we should expect a joint manifesto. So I want you to make it very clear to the public. People are watching and listening.
No, but I am not here to talk about a coalition or a strategic alliance. I'm here to talk about the beautiful convention we have had, the political platform we have. She's asking what is our base. Those are the things I'm discussing. When we reach to that stage, Lamrana, obviously, as a younger brother.
How do you fund your campaign?
Through membership dues, through donation. I mean, this is an opportunity. I wanted to conclude with that. I'm very grateful to some of our diaspora members, brothers and sisters, who, beside my own resources, our party resources, because of the economic hardship, where can amputees and more victims, youth and women, who are unemployed, the majority are part of my party. But I'm very grateful to our brothers and sisters in the diaspora who, in their little way, have been contributing small to our project. So after this, what you should be asking us, the government, we manage the new public political party registration act. Guess what happened? We manage and put that to place. And like the African Union Charter on Democracy, Elections and Good Governance stress, Article 3 say, every government should be providing subvention to political parties, so that political parties are not civil society, we are not media entity, we are not private sector. NURP is not owned by Jonathan Sandy, NGC is not owned by KKY, my brother, PMDC is not owned by Charles Magai, Femi Claude do not owe UP. But what we are doing is clear ideas. We kill if we don't support multi-party democracy. Guess what? Subvention achievement was put in that. The chairman of PPIC can told us the other day, when the bill went to parliament, it was took out. They said we should not fund political parties. And this is what I'm saying. Yet we all have ideologies we want to fix this country. If we say we have moved our country from one-party state to multi-party democracy, for God's sake, international treaties and protocols, such as the Supplementary Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance by ECOWAS, and the African Union Charter on Democracy, Election and Good Governance, we say all member states should be providing administrative support to build the capacity of political parties. We are not doing that well. The Francophone countries are doing it well.
In 2018, you ran with a woman. Are you going to do that?
Look, Lambrana, you know me for far too long now. We started this journey. Remember before you came here? You started this journey with me. I'm very grateful to people like you. Conceptually, we started this. We used to be, women are part of this equation.
Are you going to run with a woman?
We did that.
Are you committing of doing that as well?
Lambrana, this is a decision of the party National Governing Council. I have in my mind definitely to shortlist every running mate, and priority as I did, it was only 2 candidates that did that. Rest assured, women are priority in my life. If my National Secretary General is a woman now, I'm very grateful to Pastor Tambak Beki, who has served in that capacity for 4 years, but yet he gave up, he stepped down for a lady to lead our party, the National Secretary General of our party, and the women's leader, the financial secretary, the auditors. I think we are near that. Okay. It's a party for women. It's a party of reconciliation, inclusion, and
Zulai has a question before we end.
Yes, a person was asking if you have collected your identity card before I...
Yes, I think thanks for the reminder. The interesting thing is among all the candidates, I came from Mozambique and I went straight to Bo, where I grew up in Moriba town. So I have not gone because we have been busy with the national convention. But I'm sure that this week it's a priority for me to travel to Bo, to go home. I think you can never be a king without a kingdom. My kingdom is back home to collect my ID card in my mother's village. I would think I'll lie down and suck Bobby and then see my late mother's grave. So I'm going back to collect that ID card in Bo in the next few days and then come back. Because during the election, I think I'll also have to, my command structure in terms of command and control will lead from wherever I could be, but again, cast my vote in Bo and then come back home.
What are your chances of winning this election?
It's very great. I've told you my target is 55% of 3.4 million. Okay. So it's about 1.7 million. I've done the mathematics by district, by that, my ward. I do not have to hash my political strategy and campaign winning, but I'm sure that I have that. And I think it is coming. The thing is, we need sincerely to go beyond identity, tribal and regional campaigns and political system. And if you vote for me on my birthday, and I'm sure it will be, we'll redeem this country. This country, we have to battle for redemption of the soul of this country. And I'm here by the name of Jonathan to make sure the gift from God will overcome, or Allah will overcome that challenge. And I'm here to put Sierra Leone. My mission is simply to put Sierra Leone back on track to beyond politics of exclusion.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Jonathan Sandi from the National Unity and Reconciliation Party, DNURP. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Lambrana. Thank you, Adas.
Yeah. We take a story quickly. Sierra Leone is among the many countries which has huge inequality gap regarding wages and salaries. However, in a bid to address these disparities, Parliament has enacted the Wages and Compensation Commission Act 2023. During the passage, Honorable Abdul Karim Kamara pointed that the country's wage is now super bloated as compared to 2017, while the leader of government business, Honorable Machi Numa, said the bill will fix the salary structure and address the disparity in wages. Let's take this story.
Since 2020, the wage bill has been before the House of Parliament but never saw the light. However, this year it has come up for first, second, third reading and then passage. The bill seeks for the establishment of the Wages and Compensation Commission and to address the disparities regarding wages and salaries in Sierra Leone. Many MPs gave their support to the passage of the bill and also pointed some concerns regarding the timeliness of the bill, problems of constant inequalities regarding wages, and harmonization of salaries. Honorable Abdul Karim Kamara says the super bloated wage bill of about 4.9 billion is the reason for many strikes in the country over time.
And at the time we were talking of that, the wage bill was at 1.9 trillion. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, for the record, the Minister of Finance is here. We're having a wage bill now that is about 4.8 trillion. I am referencing this because I want to make it clear that what we have before us is a bill that will seek to address issues that will have been addressed before we have a super bloated wage bill we have now. Because if it was 1.9 and it was referred to as a bloated wage bill, if we will have passed this this bill long before now into our act, we would have addressed the inequalities and the unprecedented strikes that occurred in Sierra Leone within the last 4 years.
He also furthered that under the leadership of the Speaker of Parliament, Honorable Cheono Abbas Bundu, the nation has been deprived for 3 years of a wage bill.
I'm saying in 2017, you refer to the wage bill as bloated. In 2020, you had the opportunity as members of Parliament to deal with this bill to address the issue of a bloated wage bill. And we took 3 years depriving this nation in addressing the addressing the problem we saw in 2017. So I am saying, under your leadership as Speaker, you deprived this nation for 3 years in addressing the wage bill. That's what I'm saying. That's my point. As silent as it is.
Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Honorable Sengepo Solomon Thomas says,
men and women in this house. Mr. Speaker, let's not allow our debate to go down that line. Mr. Speaker is not in charge of the state. Why the government be? Why you casting us? Why can't you prime minister Speaker?
The leader of government business, Honorable Martin Yuma, countering the argument of Honorable Abdul Karim Kamara, said this.
There are two ways which we channel bill into the Chamber of Parliament, either by government motion or private member bill. So you are not in charge of those provisions. If you are so passionate about harmonizing the way, you should have done that from 2018. We also passed about over. But you cannot. We cannot allow you to ignore the powers of Parliament or the responsibility given to you as MP to transport it to Mr. Speaker. We are the responsibility of such.
Despite the many years of delay, the wage bill has seen the light. Many workers in Sierra Leone are hopeful that this law will be implemented to the benefit of all Sierra Leoneans. Samuel Tony Sawyer, AYV News, Freetown.
That was a report from Parliament by Samuel Tony Sawyer. We're coming to discuss issues around fake degrees, but first off, let's take a story from Parliament when the Honorable Kande Kole Yumkela tabled his report on fake degrees in Parliament. We'll be coming back to join our guests to start a conversation on that.
In March 2022, a video showing individuals receiving PhDs from the Dominion Christian University, an institution that the country's Tertiary Education Commission did not authorize to operate, drew the attention of whistleblowers and authorities concerned. In April the same year, Parliament formed a special select committee to investigate fake degrees in government institutions. 1 year down the line, the committee report reveals that the issue of fake degree is not taken seriously.
Our public service has an estimated over 120,000 employees. That's a modest estimate. But let me break it down a little bit. The Health Service Commission has over 11,000 employees, nurses, doctors, and other medical professionals. The Public Service Commission itself, the proper civil service, over 18,000. The Education Service Commission is over 87,000. These numbers I give you does not include parastatals and government agencies. We are not including here the daily wage workers at all. We're talking about those who are supposed to present diplomas, certificates, and degrees for various levels. Level 1 to 5 does not require a degree, but grades 7 to 14 require degrees. For example, of the 18,000 under the authority of the Public Service Commission, only 1,300 submitted certificates out of 18,000. And of course, none of those have been verified. The verification process itself is complicated. When an individual submits a certificate, you have to contact the academic institution to verify whether it is the right certificate and it's not counterfeit. That process requires a fee. So some people sent in certificates, but no verification, but the response was very low. 1,300 out of 18,000 means people did not take it serious.
Another interesting thing is that the individuals and the Dominion University have not been prosecuted because there is no strong law to do so.
3 institutions were brought to the CID for awarding degrees that they're not supposed to award. They were Dominion Christian University, the African Graduate University, and the Professional Graduate Technical Institute. Indeed, when the scandal broke, thanks to some work done by the Tertiary Education Commission, but also the whistleblowers, like Dr. Lahai and others, the CID arrested the proprietors of these 3 institutions. It is sad to report to you that 1 year later, no prosecutions, 0. For us, we were shocked that even with the Dominion case that was very clear, and you see people standing under the mango tree, their faces are shown, their names are known, no interviews except one, no prosecutions. In short, from the audit processes and from, in fact, these clear cases where institutions were giving degrees they're not supposed to give, no prosecutions. So 1 year later, as a nation, all of us, we have not taken this issue as serious as it should be.
With the growing demand for higher education in Sierra Leone, an increase in the number of tertiary institutions leaves people to question the integrity of these institutions. But the problem, like underfunding, lack of access, is among many reasons for people to turn to online courses that are also not verified, and this creates more problems.
But there is also the big problem of lack of access to tertiary education, underfunding. If you underfund, there is not enough space, people go online. In fact, most of the faking is online. The complexity of trying to verify people who have said they got their degrees online, and that's where everybody is headed now. But it's also a manifestation of lack of access, the lack of physical capacity in our tertiary education systems, and lack of funding.
Part of the recommendations of the report is for the presidents to come out with a strong statement on fake degrees and the need for governments to invest in outsourcing a credible institution with the required capacity to conduct a degree and certificate audit of MDAs, justifying that such an investment will not only add value to the president's valuable ambition of human capital development, but it will also significantly enhance the desired result of within the civil and public service of any fake degree and certificates.
Unless we have a strong regulatory environment, this practice will continue. In fact, if the scandal had not broke, if the whistleblowers had not said anything, attention would not have been paid to what the Tertiary Education Commission is doing and their lack of capacity to do what we've asked them to do.
Told as a joke on social media, the fake degree saga has brought an eye-opener in the country's higher education sector, revealing its weaknesses. Even with these issues pointed out in the report, they will continue to happen until there is a strong commitment from the government to address these challenges. Joseph Johnson, AYV News, Freetown.
Well, many thanks to Joseph Johnson for that report.
Well, in our final segment, the Special Select Committee on Fake Degrees set up by Parliament 1 year ago last week tabled their report to Parliament. They, however, said that the issue of fake degree is not taken seriously because out of 18,000 workers under the supervision of the Public Service Commission, only 1,300 submitted certificates for verification. They also added that the said submitted diplomas and degrees have not been verified yet because of resource constraints. So to talk on this morning, we have in the studio Mohammed Alpha Jallo, who's the secretary to the Special Committee on Fake Degrees, and who also doubles as Director for Strategy and Training of Parliament. Good morning again, and welcome to Wake Up Salone.
Yeah, good morning to you.
Yes, those figures are staggering. Out of 18,000, only 1,300, submitted. In terms of the recommendations, one of the recommendations, first, let me start there, is the fact that a lot of importance has to be placed now on school exams, particularly before going into, tertiary education. So in those areas, what are some of, the loopholes that were there that led to some of these skirmishes?
Well, actually, the integrity of the entire academia in Sierra Leone is questionable, not because of what is happening only at the tertiary level at the moment, but also even in primary schools, because, and the focus was for degree and certificate. And the thinking was not to say, let's go down to the primary school. But during the hearings, we realized that it started there. And how? The how part is, when we spoke with WAEC, we learned that irrespective of the fact that WAEC has been doing a lot in terms of having a policy on spying, leakages, all those things, and also having systems to be able to say those who are marking the exams are actually people who are credible. Yet, spying is all over the place, and there are special classes or special rooms wherein when you pay money, you're going to be given a special room and you're going to be there and you take your exam. So you can have your phone and you can take your exams that way. So if you are unable to get the money to pay, meaning you are unable, irrespective of the fact that you are very clever, you are trying your best, but those with money, so it's like the education system is monetized for those who are looking in that direction. So that's another area. But there are also, for some of the university, the stakeholders told us that there are something called, they call it in one of the stakeholders call it a pause. It's called like a book of hope. A book of hope, if you're in the university, a book of hope is just a kind of syndicate in which you can put money into a pause for a specific lecturer. So irrespective of your credential, irrespective of your output, as far as you have money, you put it, and they put all that money together to give a particular lecturer to be able to say, you have to look at our back. So irrespective, even if you didn't do well, you're going to pass. That also came out very strongly. And also there was a very strong direction on the parents to say, even the parent, because some parents are even going directly to teachers. This my kid, I want my kid to be promoted to another class, even if the kid is not doing well. So sometimes we are told by others to say sometimes competition at home, family reason to say, okay, look at these other parents, their children are going up and my child is still at this stage. So those are all things that came up to be able to say, okay, our system, if we want to make it very strong, effective, we should not only look at the tertiary, but also let's start back. Let's have a reflective observation or a reflective mind to start from the primary school, go to the secondary school, and now to the tertiary institution.
These are sad times. It shows that the academic system is truly flawed because, as you made mention, if parents start aiding their children to give money to lecturers and the like, then when that person goes up in places of work, of course, you have to see the loopholes or the gaps that your degree is not certified, you did not go through the ranks. So for those who by some means have their degree now or PhD or whatever ranks, what were your findings to those people who did not even submit their credentials, but still you can't find them in places of work?
Well, I mean, the entire process is in two ways. The methodology that the Special Select Committee uses is two ways. There is the one method that looks at investigation, and there is another that looks at the systemic issues. So the investigative approach into all this is the approach that looks at the audit system in ministries, departments, and agencies. And Parliament has special committees that look over these ministries. So the idea is for the ministries to go on and do their audits on their own, and that report being sent to the Ministry to the parliamentary committees that oversee their work. That's one aspect. And there is another aspect that looks at, okay, let's look at the systemic issue, your first question that you asked, to look at what are the systemic problems? What are the causes for this problem? And what could be solutions? What could be recommendations to take forward? So the focus of the select committee, looking at the time and resources, was more on the second aspect, leaving the first aspect to the ministry, department, and agency to do their audit, and also looking at the oversight committees to look at those reports. But also they focus on the systemic. And what are the systemic issues? There are about 14 of them, the systemic issues. And one of them is the one that you just mentioned, that there are a lot of spy, those kind of things taking place. But there's also issue that relates to technology. We realize that with technology, if you take advantage of, if the academia takes advantage of technology, some of these systems would have been addressed. In a situation wherein there is a portal system, all your exams get everything, the records, the academic records are like a portal system wherein you can be able to access them, but the human error is being reduced at that level. So the infrastructure within the university is limited for that. So that's one. And the second one was the one that concerned the area of, let me just look at some of these things so that I can just, inadequate regulatory framework. And Dr. Kande Yumkela mentioned that, I mean, for the Tertiary Education Commission, it needs very strong authority. It requires authority to be able to do their work. At the moment, the framework that we have is insufficient. They are insufficient for that. And there is also the area of absence of clear law, gaps in higher education when it comes to the finances. He mentioned that just quite recently. The finances, for example, the Tertiary Education Commission are responsible to monitor all the institutions for them to be able to do the exact standards that they are expecting. But the investment for monitoring is limited. They do not have the required money. They can request for the money, but the money cannot come on time, although that's not an issue that is peculiar to them, but that's an issue that came up very strongly. So if you cannot be able to monitor those people who are actually taking the administrators, then definitely there will be loopholes you won't be able to address. Corruption in education. That one came very, very strong. I started mentioning that. The corruption in education, I mean, monetizing. I mean, there are people who are just monetizing the entire education system. So the focus is not actually to be able to develop people who could come to address problems in society, but the focus is the amount of money that we are making. So corruption in education, the rise of the internet. This is another thing. The rise of the internet, for now, you can just be able to sit, you have your computer, you can be able to go design a certificate. I can design a certificate from probably college. I can design a certificate from University of McKinney, IPAM. I'm mentioning them because those are the universities that I went through. You can be able to do that with a click of your mouse. And at the end of the day, if you do not have verification system from the university, even the country haven't that, then definitely someone could just come with a degree and show to you. If you are an employer, you can just take it just by the face value and not looking at the security features, because most of them do not have the security features. So that's also very strong problem. And also there is delay in certifying students. This one came from NCTVA. NCTVA, we did not talk to them, but most of the stakeholders we spoke with, they mentioned that there's more than 10 years now, I think almost 17 years, there are students who have graduated, but they do not have their papers, their certificates. What does that mean to somebody who's gone through the institution, and after 10 years, you've not given me my certificate, and I need to go use this certificate moving forward in terms of my career. So that also would make people just move in to do something on their own. Another one also is the emergence of the lucrative Dubai fly-by-night degree. In the sense, you and I, maybe we're coming from, let us say we're coming from an institution in Sierra Leone for our first degree. And just coming from there, in 2 weeks, I'll leave you in Sierra Leone and I go to Dubai. And when I come, I'll tell you that you can call me now Dr. Jallo. It's a fly-by-night. You pay your money, $7,000. You attend a conference and you come. And when you come, they can call you like that. So in as much as tech has been identifying these issues and making them public, but also there are people taking advantage of that situation.
Let me come in there. Honorable Yumkela also made mention that because there are no strong laws, on issues of fake degrees and, these gaps as well, no arrests have been made so far. So in that direction, what, were the recommendations to provide such solutions in those areas? It's not because there are no strong laws or laws to guard way in that direction. These people should walk scot-free.
Yes, indeed. And one recommendation was so specific on making a very strong laws. And we spoke with some students, and the students were so much angry on the situation. Some youth who are so much angry to say, you know what? We could make a law that can even someone, if you are caught in that 10 years imprisonment, you can be fined or both. So that recommendation came very strongly. And at the moment, Parliament, Kande Yumkela is pushing for it to be debated. And there are about 5 or 6 specific recommendations, punitive ones that have been identified. I cannot mention them now because they have to debate them. But I mean, there is a strong one to look at. And that one is not only looking at you as a university or an institution that is unregistered, but also if you decided you are an employer and you have the onus to be able to vet certificate. If I come to you with my certificate, you employ me without vetting it, you're also guilty of something. Those are some of the recommendations. And even for you, whether you be the student, you realize that this is fake, and you decide to use it for any special benefit, it's going to be a criminal offense. And there is also, for example, some of the suggestions were also, for example, if I am a media person, for you media guys, and you know that someone comes in to say, you need to advertise for me, and I want to do recruitment for my university called Jalo University to be specific, and you fail to check with Tertiary Education Commission for that, you're going to be, so it's an offense on you because you need to check that. So these are some of the recommendations that have been put forward specifically to address that particular issue.
Honorable Kanda Yumkela, sounded very, very disappointed on that day, and in his own words, he said, the whole process has not been taken seriously. And what he mentioned was only 1,300 of the 18,000 workers under the supervision of the Public Service Commission, came forward with their documents to be verified. How has this process been with, especially people in government, with the committee trying to verify their documents, their certificates or degrees?
It's a huge work that required investment. What happened is to give you, the ministry, do it on your own. Check the audit system, check your staff and be able to get, and a lot of them did that. Even for, you go to the universities, they did that, and come to the ministries, department and agency. Not all of them, like you mentioned, 1,000 is 1,307 actually out of the figure that you just mentioned.
18,000.
Out of the 18,000. So it's 1,307 certificates. Why? What's the problem for that? When you ask, the problem is investment, because to verify a degree, approximately in Sierra Leone, can cost you about 200 to 300 new leones. And if you want to do that for a university that is in Europe, let us say UK or USA, it's about $25 to $30. What does that mean? You need to make a special budget to invest in that. If you do not do it in the middle of the game and you decide to say, okay, let's do it, what is happening? You have a very tight budget.
But was there the willingness as well for people to come forward, to present their documents, say, okay, the committee is here, they're investigating, because that was clearly the call, that people should come forward with their documents so that it can be verified.
Exactly, like I said, that's part of the work was left for the ministries, department and agency. So for them, some of the challenges that they put forward to us are those. What we did, and me as a secretary, is the focus on the systemic approach to be able to say, let's address this problem. So yes, when you look at the stats, when you look at the figures, you realize that not much is done, because it's only 14 ministries that we are able to give these 1,307. And out of those, you realize that very few issues were brought up, like I think about 8 issues to be able to say, okay, like one of them has a university from African Graduate University, some at a few at St. Clement, some are university out of this country that they were unable to verify. So from that 1,307, and you look at the figures to say Tertiary Education Commission and Teaching Service Commission alone about 80,000 teachers, you realize that, I mean, that stat is not encouraging. And that's where I want to agree with you that the stat is not encouraging that people want to come forward to do that. But also the flip side of it that they told us was the fact that the investment to do that at this particular point in time so strong. That's why the strong recommendation came in to be able to say that particular aspect should be outsourced. When you outsource it, auditing firm, they will be able to actually verify those things and be able to come up with a very strong conclusion.
In doing this work, was there the willingness, from the institutions you work with, even if you're looking at the systems and processes, was there the willingness to allow the committee to investigate and see what is happening?
Honestly, my brother, emphatically, I would say yes, there was willingness from them, 26 institutions, and all of them, you feel very strong, they're passionate to be able to say, we need to address this. We need to address this problem. And we are bringing recommendations. Most of these recommendations were not recommendations that came from the Special Select Committee. These are recommendations that came from them. So in terms of the willingness to meet with the committee, yes, because the committee created a very flexible approach in which they can go and even meet you. But some institutions, we go to the institutions and have this conversation, and some we invite them in parliament. And also we invited them in a validation exercise of this report. And some ministers we attended, Ministry of MBSSE attended, and even the Ministry of Technical and Higher Education attended, Conference of Principals attended, universities from Miltimagai, they all have, even Unimac, they attended. So in terms of being part of the process, yes, because the focus of the committee was to co-create a report that everybody can own and take advantage to be able to address the problems. So,
the problems are still there. It's, Honorable Kande clearly said that, and this, report has been tabled in Parliament. What the next step? There are recommendations, one of which is even asking the president to make a statement on this issue as well. But within Parliament, what the next step of this? Perhaps one will want to ask, what are the things that will address immediately some of these problems or the concerns that emerge from this report?
Okay, there is an area on the report that has the plan of action, and this plan of action is categorized into 3. What are the immediate? What are the mid-term? And what are the long-term? So if I can say in terms of Parliament, the first thing immediately after the report was completed was to lay it in Parliament. It has been laid in Parliament. That's point 1, to say Parliament is taking it serious. And the second aspect is to debate it. And the process is now ongoing for it to be debated. And after the debate, there's also another process to meet with the specific institution. And even there has been conversation to say, even to pay a courtesy call to the president to talk about this report, because you just mentioned one of the recommendations for the president to come up with a statement on this. So to visit the president, it's also part of it. And also the final one that I want to mention is the Speaker of Parliament so strong in support of this process, and also he asked the committee to come up with some punishment, to have some punishment in mind during the debate. So to put forward this punishment so that they could be debated, and who knows what will be the action. So with all those processes, you can feel that, yes, in terms of Parliament, there is this will. But what I agree with you, when you look at 1 year back to now, you're thinking that something bigger must have been done. Yeah. But again, this is a systemic problem. So to address this a systemic problem, you cannot leapfrog. You have to take it step by step.
Okay, for some people generally, this has a lot to do with values, character, ethics, and the likes. Nobody wants to move around the streets of it and being called a doctor, and you have a fly-by-night doctorate professional qualification to your name. So a particular section that caught my attention again in the report was the fact that a person was sincerely sorry that he had to go through the online universities that were not credible. And my question is, how do you like to take this in the issue of being, being ethical in those areas, apart from, okay, let's find a jail term or let the law take its course, speaking to particularly two incidents that happened, the one with the students at a particular school and the teachers that were, shamed at the cotton tree. In terms of ethics, these teachers who get to help these lecturers, what do you intend to do in those areas?
Okay, the work of the committee is actually not to implement the recommendations, but to be able to come up with recommendations and put forward a pathway on how it's going to be implemented. But the thinking and what's, like you mentioned, the report, one, recommendation for a national conference on morals and values. What does that mean? We are witnessing a situation wherein when you beat the system, people admire you, and not when you want to go through the system. When you want to go through the system, they look at you, you're wasting time. If you beat the system, you admire. That is a problem. Moral decadence, that's a problem. So because of that, a national conversation, one, and the committee is pushing for that national conversation to be able to see how we can bring back professionalism in what we are doing, but also, like you mentioned, ethics. And that's also brought the idea of guidance counselors. I mean, for those of us who started schooling from the 80s, you will be able to understand when you say guidance counselor, to be able to help students and even the pupils in terms of their process of growth. In that process, you can be able to let them understand the value of ethics, the values, the cultural values in terms of education, but also in terms of the self. So we and the committee recommended for that aspect as well. So we are open that if that national conversation, that process is implemented, then definitely something will come up to be able to help address this issue. But it's an issue that, I mean, I'm using this podium now to say it's an issue that the country is facing. We are in shortcut is seen as a blessing and not seen as a curse. So those people who are using the long process of the academic value chain are seen like you're wasting your time, whilst those who are using the shortcut are being seen they are like the heroes. And that is not how society should move. Societal values are very important. So we hope that that national conversation will be able to bring forward specific areas that can be taken forward.
Finally, I want to ask about the involvement of the Ministry of Tertiary and Higher Education and the Tertiary Education Commission in all of this. Is it that you've presented these reports to them, or it will just stop at Parliament?
No, first, let me just do a reflection. In the beginning, to start the process, what the Special Select Committee did to be able to bring forth all these policymakers in education, all the regulators, all the administrators in education, to be able to say, okay, this is the terms of reference, but we cannot do this alone. We need, even in terms of the questions that we are going to ask, those questions are generated. They were generated together with the policymakers and the administrators, the regulators. And at the end of the day, also, specifically the Ministry of Technical and Higher Education, they provided us a lot of information dug in the process, but also in the validation they were there. And also there are a lot of policies that Tertiary Education Commission, there is a process of a lot of policy like distance learning policy, and the Ministry of Technical and Higher Education have all this, and they want to put them in Parliament, and Parliament is ready now to accept them to be able to help the situation. The Ministry of Basics and Senior Secondary School Education, they themselves, in the process, they've been through right in the process. In fact, there is going to be a visit immediately after to this specific institution, so that, I mean, it's like the courtesy call that I mentioned.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us this morning. And we'll definitely follow up on the next step on this report. Okay. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Well, this is where we end today's edition of Wake Up Sierra Leone. Remind you, our quote for today says, all growth depends upon activity. There is no development physically or intellectually without effort, and effort means work. And it comes from Calvin Coolidge, an American attorney and politician who served as the 30th President of the United States of America from 1923 to 1929.
Many thanks to our sponsor, Local Commercial Bank, for their support to the program, and thanks to our guests who've joined us this morning, and to you, our viewers and listeners as well. Wake Up Sierra Leone returns tomorrow. Till then, we have been your presenters. I am Amadullah Mganapa.
And I am Zulaya Hamid. Have a lovely day.
Talking point platform. Oh, yeah. Unale we pledge with love and loyalty to we sweet, sweet mama salute. Now we all come together as one. For tomorrow, now we go make salute.